The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. 10 years ago, on June the 10th, 2014, Paul Dragan sat down to enjoy a cup of coffee across the street from his business, Reckless Rider. He took a sip, and then as he looked up, a heavyset man wearing a bicycle helmet came around the corner, pulled out a gun, and shot Paul in the chest. He landed on the ground, blood pouring out of his body. Were it not for a series of remarkable events, I'd be dead, says Dragan. A doctor was standing feet away at the time that I was shot. An ambulance miracle happened. Vancouver Hospital was minutes away, and 14 minutes later, I was in the emergency room with my life in the hands of a surgeon who was not going to let me die. 6 days later, Dragan woke up in a hospital bed, his wife and son next to him. For 6 days, they'd been racked with the fear that Paul would die. Classically, says Dragan, my first words were, "Where am I and what happened?" He had no idea. I didn't even recall being shot or anything from that morning. I invited Paul Dragan to join me for a conversation that matters about his incredible journey to the darkness of death and back. Paul, welcome.
Thank you, Stu.
And I'm very happy that you're alive. You look great. You're smiling. But when you think back, because it's been a decade, and I know that you've always had a certain amount of trepidation about talking about this, but now you sort of say, okay, let's talk about what happened, what it did to you physically, but then how you have grown and become, well, an even better guy than you were before.
Well, thank you. Absolutely. Of course, it's a pleasure to sit and talk to you, Stu, as well. That event obviously was a defining moment in my life. It was a defining moment in my family's life. And in a very appreciative way, it was a defining moment for lots of people. And many people I talk to go, I remember I was doing, and whatever it was, shopping at the grocery store, going for a bike ride, whatever it was, right? Mm-hmm. So at that time, 10 years ago, let's call it shootings in Yaletown were relatively rare.
They're still relatively rare. So what do you remember of that morning? Like in my intro, I said you don't remember the morning, mm-hmm. but do you have any memory of that day?
Oh, yeah. I got up and I went to the bank. I got up like a normal day, went to the bank at 9:30, actually had a yoga class that morning, which was enjoyable. And then I was sitting with my manager having a coffee, and then I don't remember anything, nothing until I woke up in the hospital. So my journey, if you like, started when I woke up, and I thought it might be the next day, and then eventually my wife goes, "No, you've been here for 6 days, and we're so grateful that we're all of a sudden talking to you." So
your wife and son must have been just like beside themselves because they have full memory of what happened.
Yeah. Obviously, it was very traumatic for Erica, my wife. My son, who was 12 at the time, handled it very, very well. And I think he knew that his dad was strong, right? That his mm-hmm. dad was fit, his dad was strong, and he'd make it, right? So, of course, I don't know what they thought during those 6 days, but certainly once I woke up, he said, "I knew you'd make it, Dad." And, and in hindsight, Stu, I was there in the hospital for about 2.5 weeks in total. And when it was time for discharge, of course, they bring you a wheelchair. And I just said, I'm not getting in the wheelchair. Mm-hmm. I'm going to walk out of here, right? And it probably took me 10 or 15 minutes to walk from the ICU to where we were in emergency, which was kind of coincidental because my wife had parked there. But something in my brain just said, no, I'm going to walk out of here. And that's what happened.
I would like to sort of revisit a couple of the astonishing miracles that happened. You get shot in the chest.
Correct.
But didn't hit you in the heart, didn't sever your spinal cord, because mm-hmm. the bullet exited out of you. How remarkable is it that you were able to return to full function?
Yeah, so I was shot in the chest, and the majority of the bullet exited by my spine, which was the issue with the blood loss, because I had a relatively large hole in my back, and blood was quickly leaving my body. And the people who were there originally started doing CPR on me. And of course, the blood is getting pumped out. So Dr. Chase, who happened to be coming out of Urban Fare, who attended to me first, the first thing he did was rolled me over, saw the wound, and said, we've got to stop the bleeding here. So Starbucks bar towels can work for many things. So I was on the ground. The police happened to be there at that moment. 2 detectives were going to get a cup of coffee at Urban Fare, completely unrelated to anything. They had just pulled up. They saw the shooter with the gun out, and they recounted to me later, it took them a couple of seconds to process what was going on. Is this a movie? Is this a commercial, a joke? What's going on? Anyhow, after the first shot, they realized that there were issues. So luckily for me, they engaged the shooter.
So that he couldn't take a second shot?
He couldn't take a second shot.
Oh.
Yeah. He took the shots at them, but he didn't take one at me, and then he disappeared on his bicycle towards Science World.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. I was reading that because he left and the police were there, they could radio that he wasn't in the area, which meant the ambulance could attend to you right away.
Yeah, generally they keep the paramedics and anyone else out of the area if there's an active shooter. Because he had left, those couple of very experienced life support paramedics who had just signed off on a call from VGH and were coming down the hill to the Cambie Street Bridge, attended directly. I had no vitals when they got me in the ambulance.
So technically you're dead at that point.
Yeah. And they knew that the number one issue was oxygen to my brain. And that is the key for people, is how long can you live without that oxygen. So luckily the trauma ward at VGH was very close. They got me there in the right amount of time. The trauma surgeon, Dr. Hamid, had done his residency in Miami, and he had lots of experience with gunshot wounds. So although it was a traumatic event and it's not something they're used to at VGH, their protocols and training kicked in, and here I am.
Well, they were able to get you to the emergency room so quickly. Played quite a role
absolutely.
too.
Yeah,
and it's my understanding, even when you're in emergency room, you're in on the edge of death.
Yeah.
And of course, you have no awareness of this.
No. Had I been a kilometer more away, it wouldn't have happened. Had there been a problem with traffic getting to the hospital, they would have done everything they could, but they would have called me in the trauma bed, right?
So what I find so remarkable is that you go, I don't have any trauma about this. Like, how's that possible?
Well, I have no memory of the event. I was drinking coffee with my manager like I'm talking to you. And then I wake up in the hospital. I'm reclined. My wife, Erica, is looking over me. She says, Paul, you're okay, but you're in the hospital and you've been shot. And I sort of look around a little bit and glance down at my chest, and then I see all these tubes sticking out of me. And then I go, oh, something bad has happened here. But that's when I woke up. That's when my story started.
So tell us about your story. You said, you walked out of the hospital, but you were severely traumatized physically. And what did it take to physically start to recover, to get your strength back?
Well, so the end result of the bullet entering my body was that I lost a tremendous amount of blood. The hospital put 60 units in me, and I'm not quite sure how many the human body takes, but it's not much more than that. They were on blood alert for a number of hours because blood is a fresh product, and they didn't have enough had there been another incident that they needed. But I ended up losing the top lobes of my lung on the right-hand side, and I have a huge scar across my chest where they intervened and actually got my heart to pump blood. And so when I left, I had lost 25 pounds and was very, very sore for a number of weeks. And then just gradually I started to feel a little bit better. And then probably 6 weeks after the event, I thought, I wonder if I can ride my bike. So my bike had been locked to a tree out in front of our apartment, and guess what? It was still there, luckily for that. Anyhow.
Another miracle.
Another miracle, right, in Vancouver. So I hopped on my bike. I went about 6 feet, and I said, wow, this is better. It was easier than walking, and I thought, wow, I'm going to be okay if I can ride my bike. I rode it around the block. I said, that's enough for today. And that just slowly started my recovery.
Yeah, I have this philosophy about, well, if something's not going so well, go for a bike ride. And if it's still not so well when you come back, ride a little further.
Sure. Yeah.
I love being on a bike.
Yeah. Well, likewise. And it's something that I've done from childhood all the way through. I did some professional bike racing in Europe. I did some triathlons. Like I said, I was a fit 52-year-old going into that incident. And sometimes too, in the back of your mind, you go, I've been exercising forever. Why do I do this? I don't do competition anymore, but obviously you never know when you're going to need your help. And luckily I had it that day.
What's the other part of your journey emotionally? What's it been like?
No real issues. Yeah, no real issues. At the beginning, when I'd hear an ambulance go by, I'd sort of, think, I hope they get there in time to that person, or I hope it's not serious. Luckily, my brain cells seemed to remain intact, so I was very keen to get back to my stores, and I was back at work in about August. I'd been shot in June, so I was back in work in about August. Not doing a lot, but very thankful and happy to be involved in my business, and learned a few things about that. Meaning that when you're a small business owner, you tend to do a lot of things yourself, and other people aren't as good at it, or they don't do it the way you want it, or whatever. But I had been sort of putting some systems in place a number of years earlier, so that if I did want to get out of town for 3 months or something, the business would function without me. So those sort of kicked in, and the business recovered. I didn't realize till later how concerned my suppliers were, not just for my health, but were they going to get paid? Was that business going to continue to function? So I'm proud of my staff at that point in time, and I'm proud of myself for being able to manage it.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. What about your sense of self? You talk about being a small business owner, and I know exactly what that's like. I mean, I don't know if you're exactly like me, but I worry about everything all day, every day, and it's hard for me at times to appreciate what's going on around me or any of the marginal gains or successes that I've had, because I'm so busy worried about, well, I'm going to be in business tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Has this affected?
Well, I still worry every day, and people ask me what my hobbies are. I say I have two: inventory control and payroll. Stu, I've been in business now for 38 years.
Yeah.
And you're right, I worry about it every day. I'm going, how are we doing? Are we okay? And I think that's what makes successful business people successful, is they're focused and they're motivated. Mm-hmm. So coming out of that event, I was focused and motivated, right? And that's what we do now. And it's wonderful to have a business that works. It's challenging to have a business that's challenging. But, I go through the motions, and like you've been doing it a long time. And I always had a philosophy that in 6 months, I'm either, I could be out of business, or I could have a couple of million in my pocket because someone comes by and wants to buy it. So I just don't know what the future is. But, you know, we go to work, we work hard, and we like what we do, and we hope that our customers do too.
Prior to being shot, I mean, it's unusual to talk to somebody saying, prior to you getting shot, because I can't imagine what it's like, did you have a sense of your role in the world and meaning of life?
Yeah, a little bit. So you're in the television production business or broadcast business. I'm in the bike business. Did I have an epiphany at grade 8 and go, I'm going to run a bike store? No. But I fell into it, if you like, because I was always interested in business and had a huge interest in bicycles. And at the beginning, you sometimes question yourself as a young man. You know, my other friends are in university, or one's a lawyer, and the other one's a doctor, and the other one's a stockbroker, and here I am selling bikes.
Yeah, all those highly regarded professions that your mother said you should become an accountant.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, I sold a bike to a fellow back in the late 80s who had saw it in my window, and he drove by it every day. He worked at Molson's Brewery.
Yeah.
And he came in and he bought it, and he bought it just like that. About 9 months later, guy shows up on this bike, and it was a unique bike. And I go, oh, I wonder where he got that. He goes, Paul, you don't remember me, but I worked at Molson's Brewery down the street. I was drinking up to a case of beer a day. That bike has changed my life. I lost 40 pounds. I'm not drinking, I'm riding. So that was the first hint that I had that what I do is important. And you know yourself, Stu, think of your life without your bike.
Can't.
Right? You can't. You can't, because it's become an integral part of you. And it's not that you're doing the Tour de France or triathlons.
I'm not even racing guys down the sidewalk.
Exactly.
No.
You're just on your bike, but you know that your bike makes your life better. And I've always maintained that if you live in an urban environment like Vancouver, especially Vancouver, because it's so active and we're so proactive with bike lanes and wider sidewalks, that's an important part of your life. So we as a bike store play an important part in people's lives. And you could argue that we're not saving lives or making them thousands or millions of dollars, but we are saving lives, and we are contributing to their mental health and well-being. And if they become a better business person, father, mother, dad, grandfather, because of riding their bike, hey, that's important, right? So I've developed this sense of, it's not gratitude, but self-satisfaction that my life has played an important role in the growth and development of Vancouver.
The production of this program is made possible thanks to the support of the following and viewers like you. I have come to believe, and this is why I'm so grateful that you survived that incident, because you get to continue to contribute in that way. And I have come to believe that every single thing that you do affects people. And the environment in which you live, like the trees, the birds, the dogs, the cats, you name it. And so you do something and it affects change. And that change then affects other change in a manner that it never would have happened if you weren't part of that chain of events. Yeah. So post your, experience with a bullet, do you have a greater sense of appreciation around that contribution that you continue to make?
I have a greater sense of my contribution to people as people. And so I've always been active in business and in athletics. I've always been too busy. I've always had more to do than I get done. But one thing I realized, and I found afterwards, was that I had more time just for people to talk to them. Not necessarily about bikes, not necessarily about anything else, but about people. And that I find has been very satisfying to me inside. I don't know quite the effect that it's had on other people, but I found for me, it's given me a great sense of satisfaction because I slow down. And Stu, everybody's got a story. Everybody has a story. And we're fortunate in the bike world. We get everybody in there. Stockbrokers, lawyers, doctors, baristas, food delivery guys, mums, dads, little kids, right? So and everybody's got a story. And so I think I take a little bit more time to hear their story.
Well, I appreciate the fact that I can be out for a ride and I go, I think I'm just going to stop by and have a chat with you. And I'll get some free air and maybe a little bit of oil. Oh, Sergio, I got this little squeak and whatnot. But we chat, we talk, we enjoy life. Yeah. And that's the other part of the service that you're offering.
Yeah. Well, you and I would remember the corner gas station of our youth.
Yeah.
And you could drop in there and there'd be a pop machine and there'd be guys hanging out and talking. That's all gone, right? You could argue that maybe Starbucks is kind of that place, but there's no place left in the city where you can drop in and say, can I borrow a screwdriver? Or I need some oil for my chain. And obviously we have to retail. It's expensive areas where we operate in. I have to sell. But as part of that, we offer that service, if you like, just to be nice to people, because why not? We can.
Well, as a result, I go, there's something I can do with one of those. And I wind up buying it.
Sure.
Because you do that. Okay. How much more do you appreciate the love of your family at this point in your life, especially considering that you may have lost that?
Sure. You don't realize what's important to you until you realize that it could all be gone.
Right.
And in an instant, Stu, you woke up this morning planning your day. I've woke up this morning planning my day. But on the way to work on my bike, I could have been hit. You could have been hit.
Yeah.
So it strengthened my relationship with my wife. It made me slow down a little bit more with my son, just to chat and hang out. And the people who are around me, who supported me, I would say we have a close relationship in general. So in a very strange way, the incident has been beneficial to me.
It is strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it allows you or affords you the opportunity to take a look at yourself and the world in which you live and say, aren't I fortunate?
Yeah. Well, and luckily, Stu, for me, I'm doing everything I did before. Not quite as well. We have a family property in Nova Scotia. I was there last week putting a chimney on the top of a 30-foot roof. And I'm the guy bringing the bricks up and down the ladder. So I can do it, right? And I'm happy to do it. But every morning when I wake up and I look at myself in the mirror and I look at my scar, I go, wow, this is going to be a great day.
Well, thank you for coming in and sharing this remarkable story. And I'm thankful you're here. Thanks.
Me too, Stu. Thank you.